Hello, welcome back to another design roast. All the banners in this video are again gonna be Discord focused, but I promise next video I'll switch it up a bit and include some designs from say Twitter or YouTube. Might have promised that last video, but I pinky promise it'll be the next video after this one. Again, throughout the video, I'll pop up examples of how the banners actually look in use. And if you want me to review your banner, please make sure to join my Discord server, discord.gg/tsuke. Go to the media channel, upload your banner, and in the text slot, type review please or please review. And I'll find it and I will most likely review it in one of these videos. Other than that, let's jump right into this video. So starting out, this banner I actually like a fair bit. I do think they took some inspiration from one of my other tutorials, being the video in question with that little top part. But again, they could have discovered it completely of their own accord, and that is perfectly normal. That happens all the time when it comes to design. But the only things I would change with this, well, I guess there'd be a few things. I really like the way the background is done. I like these little tiny details that you only really notice if you actually take a closer look. Those being the dots and the little, I guess you could call it lines going across. I almost called it the glass you can put on top of a design. Cannot think of a word for it. I guess it would be the glass covers? No, that's not the word for it, but anyway, I think you get the idea. So I really like that. The text, even though it is in this format where there's not too much contrast, I think there's just enough that it is visible. My biggest complaint would be with this massive character on the left. I suppose it does work well enough, but I would definitely cut out this bottom section to say probably here, and I'm not a fan of chopping off parts of the head for a character. When it comes to a character, I like to have bust up and include the entire head, nothing missing, and I see a lot of banners that kind of violate my rule. Again, my rule just being a rule of thumb that I try to follow myself, and I think looks best when it comes to banners. So that would be the biggest change I'd recommend here. I would also maybe suggest a stroke. So it's not going to look good because it's going to affect this character here. But if you add a stroke to just the banner part, maybe a white stroke, just to help it stand out a little bit more. And I might even add some contrast as well between these two. Maybe an inner shadow from this top section with the inner shadow coming up. I believe it's going to be 90 degrees you'd have to have it hitting at. And I believe that'd be a nice extra addition. And when it comes to watermarking, the thing is, unless you put the watermark, now I have a really good example of a watermark in one of these other banners, but even then there's some improvements that can be made. For example, if I just highlight over this and I do Shift F5, content aware, bam, I mean there is very minimal trace that there was ever something there, but for the most part it's gone just like that. So when it comes to watermarks, my rule of thumb is always have a few in there and kind of have them mixed around. So I would put one maybe behind the character poking out. I would have one in a hard place to actually cover it up. So I think since everything here is a blurred background, having it on the character would be your best bet. Another part maybe being across the zipper, because again it will be easy to see. Because if I try to do Shift F5 here, content aware, it just makes a complete mess of the area. Unless the person trying to steal the banner is an artist themselves, which is unlikely if they're stealing it. They're not going to be able to correct any mistakes in the drawing. So that's my suggestions when it comes to watermarking. Because as you can see, I removed that watermark in less than a second. I guess more of a couple seconds, but close enough. Next one, this banner, as you can see from the way it loaded, is a GIF. And the problem I have with GIFs is they don't play automatically when you go into a channel. If they played automatically, I would definitely be using GIF banners myself, GIF animated banners. I would use them for just about everything. But if you have to hover over the banner to get the animation to play, that just doesn't do it for me because it removes a lot of the fun from the process. So you can see the way they have it, the arrow comes in, it clicks it, and then it gets bigger and some stuff happens. But, so the animation part is the first problem. The second problem is it about this size? When it's at this size, you can hardly read the text. Sure, it does improve when they switch to this pink backgrounds, but even then, it just doesn't fit all that well. So I'd probably increase the text size, and I would actually format the entire thing as if it was a Windows window. So I think, let me see if I have an idea here. And I actually have a pretty good example right here. So the first one would be, of course, one of the tutorials I have on my channel. This would be one way to do it. If you don't want a giant character in there, this is also a really nice format. Open image, a new tab. Let's check some of these out. I believe they're going for a more retro style, and I think all of these look really nice. So first off, the font is what doesn't really fit for this scenario, and because you can see the font, as with mine, is more of an 8-bit sort of style, and you can see that matches across all of these. And generally when you open a window, you'll still see buttons, so I would probably have buttons in here. Honestly, I would need to give it a lot more thought for this pink section, but the way it's designed now, I'm just not a fan, and I think you could probably agree that it could use a bit of work. And again, these are some great references that I would use by simply searching retro Windows UI, and you'll find so much stuff here that you can just glance at. Cool. Next one. This one I like as well. I'm not so much of a fan of this massive stroked gradient on the text, but I like what's going on in the background. I like how busy it is, but it's busy in a way that matches both the character and the banner itself, though I suppose the background is the banner itself. But I really like the direction they took with this, and that same style is seen across all of their banners. All of the backgrounds are busy, colorful. This one's just more of a grayscale, but they all match the character, and that's a huge thing for me. When you're designing a banner and you have a character, I believe it's really important to design the banner based on the colors of your character. So if you have a bright pink character, or maybe not bright pink, but they have bright pink hair, maybe a reddish shirt or a lightish pink shirt, making your banner green or blue probably wouldn't be for the best. Blue might work, but maybe mixing blue with predominantly pink would be so much better. And as you can see here, the character is more of a grayscale, and that definitely translates to the rest of the banner. And I think it's even as simple as they grabbed the color there, and then they moved it over to this right side. So they grabbed a lighter and a darker, and they transitioned it to everything else. So huge plus to them for that. Again, this might actually be a little more complicated to remove. Let's try that. Yep, that's definitely messier to remove. You could probably simplify the process, but they did a much nicer job of watermarking it, because it covers a bit of a more complicated part of the backgrounds. And honestly, their background is so complicated that I would put a few more throughout it. Maybe one behind here, or even on top of this section here, and maybe one coming out from underneath the text here. Try to scatter a few around, and they don't need to be this noticeable. Just again, drop the opacity and move them around. We'll go to this one now. This one I kind of like. So there's a few things that really stand out to me. The biggest is this circle. The only way I can see as to how or why this circle would be so jagged around the edges is if a circle ring was downloaded from Google Images, it was smaller than they needed, they then upscaled it and then added a stroke. Because when you upscale it or you get a low quality image, the edges tend to be jagged, and it only gets worse if you add a stroke to it. That problem becomes much more apparent. And their logo, which you'd think would be high quality, also seems to be having that issue. There's a random piece here that jumps out, doesn't really conform. And I probably would have avoided having a stroke in the center. And a quick way you could have done that is had two versions of the logo overlaid. One where you covered this up, and the other one cover it up when you add the stroke. Another one that was just regular, you dragged it in and did a control. Let's actually do an example, I guess, real quick. So say I have this here, right? Let's do that. And then I have another version that has text on it. Actually, no, I don't even need to do that, but I think it'll still be nice to see what I'm getting on all about. Let's rasterize that, rasterize that. So this one, I'm gonna put ABC, let's make it white, just so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Let's bring this down as well. I wanna put it right here. Then I'm gonna go to this layer, control click and delete. Then my tool here, deselect, delete the ABC. Now you can see the ABC is cut out. It's pretty messy, it's not centered or anything, but you get the idea. If I were to add a stroke now, it would not look all that great in my opinion. One, at the larger stroke size, it gets filled back in. At the lower stroke size, it just doesn't look all that great. So we're gonna come to this one here where it's filled in. Go to blending options, go over to stroke. We can have as thick of a stroke as we so desire. Then we can return to this one. Actually, let's go back to this one real quick. We can rasterize it. And we can delete this section right here. Then we can make this one visible, and so voila, we have our ABC back. That does rasterize it, but typically, at least I do, I'm not sure if others do as well, I keep a backup of layers that are important before I rasterize it or bake something into the design. So just keep a backup. You can do a Control J real quick to duplicate it, and that is good to go from there. The backgrounds, I guess, is fine. I'm not sure how I feel about the gradient, but I guess it works. The text, I would probably increase the spacing. You can do that, the spacing between the characters. You can do that with this VA1. I'm holding Control and dragging left to right, and the spacing is changing, so I'll just change the spacing a bit because this S is bumping right against the E, but you notice the other ones have some spacing in between, so that doesn't really match all that well. Character, I guess it's fine. The blue hair doesn't really match the rest of the banner, but they kept at above the chest and they kept the entire head, so huge points. A lot of points for that one. Don't know what this little white dot is up here. There's a little bit of mess up here. I assume that it was from where the character was cut. So just be mindful of how you adjust your character, how you bring them in, or where you decide to chop them at. And keep an eye out for any loose particles. And now, on to the last and my favorite banner out of this entire lot. And probably my favorite banner I've seen for a long time. So the way I designed this, I love it, absolutely love it. I think this is still too chunky, so I'll probably uncurve this a bit, and again, I'll chop it down by about that much, so it's then at about this size here. And of course, keep the little tape, keep the CAD and the pokey and the little stars, but it's really top notch. It actually has a part 2 to this banner. So they used this one as a divider, this one as the main channel header, and I think this is great. This is, I guess, more traditional art. I suppose if I wanted to, I could kind of replicate this in Photoshop. but it's definitely a lot more difficult than if you're a real artist and you can actually draw this by hand. So I think they did a wonderful job. Again, for the watermarks, this could really use some work. So the watermarks appear with the cat. This is great because if I try to remove this one, Shift F5, content aware, it leaves a clear mess that something was there and something was deleted. So I would have kept your discord.gg/invites centered around here, or even across this section here, going just like that, or just like this, or even, I guess, somewhere like that. But again, down here, while this has some stuff in the backgrounds, that was also really simple to remove by going over, doing a Shift F5 and a content aware. That was a bit messier because it was catching on to this left side over here. But again, that is super simple to remove. That was a bit messy again, but as you can see, I clearly removed the invite itself. So if I want to steal it, it would be gone in a hot minute. But I mentioned earlier how you can go about fixing these watermark issues. And even under this text, if this text isn't baked in, if it's not hand drawn in, which I don't think it is, you can kind of hide it behind the text. And anybody trying to remove it's going to have a really bad time because they're not going to be able to do so easily and leave no traces. So other than that, I was honestly pleasantly surprised by the stuff I found. This one was surprised me the most, so huge shout out to Nee for this banner design. You did an amazing job. I think it's one of the first times a banner has actually impressed me on Discord, so again, really nice job with that. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. Other than that, I hope you all have an awesome day.